Welcome, everyone, to this edition of the Build America podcast, the construction industry podcast that is capturing and sharing the very heartbeat of construction people, projects, and purposes. And I'm your host, Carrie Smith Buck, and I'm also the owner of Construction News and Review magazine. And with us today, back again, we're excited to have Lutalo or Luke Webb, who is the VP of Data and Tech Strategy at Guarantee Electrical Company. And Lou, thank you so much. It's always great to have you back and appreciate your time.
I'm glad to be back. I got some great responses from the last time we spoke, actually. So I'm always appreciative of the platform and you sharing that with me.
I love the title and the concept. It's called From Tool Sprawl to True Tech Integration. I can't say that three times fast.
I don't think I can.
Lot of T's in there. You sit right at the intersection of construction operations, enterprise intelligence, and you're building the data infrastructure, government governance frameworks, and technology ecosystems to allow contracting businesses to make faster, smarter decisions. You're my go to person on bringing technology adoption to the fore and really making it make sense for the people who use the tools and build the projects and not just the C suite.
If there was ever a day where my confidence was low, you just boosted it up.
Oh
So
my
thank
goodness.
you for
Well,
that warm intro.
I'm a journalist, so that is 102% accurate. Let's first define the term tool sprawl in terms of general contractors and specialty contractors. I wondered if tool sprawl is manifested in chasing the shiny object or how tool sprawl originates, and that maybe looks different for different companies.
So yeah, let's take that piece by piece. So just tool sprawl is going to be unchecked accumulation of software is what we'll call that. And typically that's without any kind of coordinated strategy. That's the key piece in this. What it's going to end up looking like usually is a lot of redundancy. We got three softwares that kind of do the same thing. Usually you got fragmented data that comes out of that, and usually systems that basically aren't speaking to each other is the output of that typically. Um, and construction is kind of easy for that to happen because naturally there's this line almost between field and office. And there's kind of some competing interests that happen in that. And people kind of figure out what they could, like, you do what you got to do to get a job done. So, tool sprawl, accumulation of software, the shiny object. I will say I got some feedback from my last talk that maybe I beat up on people a little too much. So, I'm gonna white flag here and say that the shiny object thing is real. It is also well intentioned. What it usually means is a project manager might see some documentation tool at a conference or something, and they're really trying to solve a problem. And maybe they do go purchase that or see a demo or something like that. None of those decisions of chasing the shiny tool are necessarily horrible decisions in isolation. It's just when you start compounding that, you look up and you got a whole bunch of softwares. Guarantee we've been going through this. When we actually like put pen to paper and started tracking, it was 114 different softwares across the company.
Wow.
And we didn't wake up one day and get 114. That is years of individual decisions that I'm sure were all rational at the time that they made them, but that accumulates. Really, what it speaks to when you're talking about tool sprawl, it's not the chasing of the shiny object so much as it is lack of governance, lack of processes to speak about how you go through a process to get whatever that shiny tool or object is.
That's really well said. That makes sense to me because you probably see and hear and demonstrate so much technology today, and especially the magic AI and all the products and just groundswell of things that I'm sure that governance and objective criteria that you place on all of this has to be super, super crucial.
Yeah, it needs to be. It's a critical part, and it's not always the easiest sell. It's not the sexiest marketing campaign, so to speak. They say, "Hey, hold on, let's think about the way we want to do this before we get the tool," because usually people are trying to put out a fire or address an issue that they have. Sometimes I'm well aware that IT can kind of feel like an extra hurdle that you have to jump over. So it's always me and my team's role and job to make sure that we are seen as supporters, and that if there are any hurdles, it was because we put it over a pit that you might have fell in. So it's to
Right.
protect you more than give you more obstacles to climb.
That makes sense. You're more on a higher level and you're not probably frequently the one on the job site who is having to push through and meet a deadline. The owner just moved up, but you're the person that has, I don't want to say the luxury, but just the position of stepping back and stepping above and seeing more systemic stuff that's going on across project sites.
Yeah, and let's call that a privilege, right? I don't get that capacity unless other people are kind of keeping the lights on here, which is why I don't want to shun them for the decision of maybe getting a tool in a moment. Like usually it's for the right reasons. We just maybe should have went about it a different way.
Sure, that makes total sense. And it's probably not just the tools themselves, it's the workflows that the tools feed into. Is that a big part? Talk a little bit about how the decisions you all make feed into the ultimate workflow in the built environment.
Yeah, so this is kind of where things get a little tricky because if you thought tool sprawl was something, flows is usually where it gets worse. Because and a good example, let's just say that a company is using Procore, and let's now say a company has different business units that are utilizing the software. Without that governance piece of this, right? They could largely each be configuring this environment a little differently for their business units. So when you take out Procore and put another tool, it's not just slapping another tool in there. You got three different workflows that you need to understand and make sure or still getting the output they thought they would be getting. You can replace a tool in a year. It is usually a much bigger lift to change how people work. That takes longer. That's change management. That's training. That's, hey, we don't do it this anyway. It's a lot of other components to that. So I would say these things are definitely connected, but workflows is actually more complex when you're bringing new solutions or swap something out.
That makes a lot of sense, Lou. I wonder too, on a typical job site, unless it's all being self-performed by the general contractor, you've got people and tools and workflows, and they don't report to the person that's project manager, the superintendent. So I would think that when you talk about the complexity of different processes, that has to compound it if you're not really able to decide for all these different factions of workers.
And then most people are going to develop their own workarounds, right? Let's say I'm on a job site. You maybe told me to use some fancy planner software or something like that. But if spreadsheets, text messages, and a sheet of paper gets the job done, I'm gonna do what I need to do to get the job done. So I mean, sometimes this is even on the business to make sure that the workflows and tools they have supporting them do align with like who's doing the work at the end of the day. It's a ever changing conversation.
I'm sure when there is a breakdown or a disconnect in the field, there's probably different ways that that appears generically, where there's examples of where the disconnect, either in the tool or in the workflow, maybe more the latter, where that shows up.
Sadly, sometimes when that shows up, it's a little too late. It might be construction. It could be a job went bad, right? And then you start digging into why it went bad, and you realize that we didn't do this type of meeting that we were supposed to do to make sure the schedule matched what our estimate was, or dot dot dot. I think that it kind of varies in different situations. Maybe in the last 6 months, and this was led by our people team. Realize that we do need to maybe have a different lens on how we support what we call our trade partners, where their needs being met, what are their frustrations, what are their pain points, and not surprisingly, tech was one of the pain points. And it is often that you might roll something out, you have some training, but what about in 3 months when I actually need to use a tool? Do I have an easy way to get to it? Hey, I'm not in a Teams environment. I'm in my trailer and I'm maybe emailing on my phone to now remember to go to some intranet to figure out where the documentation is. You got not only meet people where they are, but sometimes also hand them the food, so to speak. Don't expect them just to pick it up. When we were trying to get data, let's say from multiple sources, and realizing that, oh wow, this is only filled out 30% of the time. Why is it only filled out 30% of the time? Well, it turns out it's two other softwares are getting used. So maybe it's more like 60% of the time. Then we find out, all right, the last little bit of that is people are doing this on paper and communicated in a different way. So I think once you got something that's a little bit more quantifiable, is a lot of times when you're actually able to see that something is not lining up in this process, and it's not uniform. We have not figured that out. One thing we did realize though is that we needed what we call a construction technology support. Our trade partners have different needs and usually a different sense of urgency than someone in the office does. So we're learning in that journey right now, and even the support that we have for people. And the more that we kind of build that relationship there, the more information we're getting. Nobody's putting in a help desk ticket on the job site half the time. They're going with whatever is going to get them a solution in the quickest way, because that's kind of what they need in that moment. So we're finding ways to get the information a little bit more, and a big part of that is consistent training, having information readily available, and getting a feel for what are your pain points. How can we help?
Love the people centric approach and evident in your chief people officer, just even the titles and your culture and how Guarantee has really approached that. And not only internally with your own people, but that's a shining example that you gave Lou about support for your trade partners, for the people that are out there implementing the plans and the models and the things that you to make the jobs happen. I'm really glad you shared that, because that support, just that initiative, thinking of that and realizing, hey, this is what our partners need. And I'm sure talking to them and learning from them how you can support them. That's such a boots on the ground thing that Guarantee does that I don't hear from a lot of other companies.
Yeah, you'll never get fussed at here for going to a job site. I don't care where you are in the org chart, what your role is. Nobody will ever fuss at you for saying, "Hey, I wanted to go visit a job site." It's encouraged and it's really needed. It's just so easy to be disconnected and live in your own silo and think that you're not a part of something bigger. So I think a couple things help that. One, leadership backing that up. Also, us being 100% employee owned, kind of naturally has that spirit of I want to understand the whole pie, because I'm a piece of it myself and have stake in this myself. I think that's all been kind of some cultural shifts with Guarantee over the last few years I've been here.
That's fantastic. If people are listening and maybe they're an organization, small or larger, in the AEC industry, and they're wondering, where do I get started to develop that governance and mindset? I know it's not a three easy steps kind of answer, but how would you advise, whether it's an architecture firm, an engineering company, or a general contractor, if they know that they've got an issue there, but they don't know who to start with internally and maybe how to start? How would you advise them in terms of beginning it?
So I think a big word in this is going to be incremental. Things need to be incremental. Don't try to, what's the phrase, boil the ocean at once. Because especially when we're talking about tool sprawl, like it happened incrementally, didn't happen all at once. So you're not going to deconstruct it all at once either. One is just start with an honest inventory of what you have. If you got an IT team, they're going to like do an audit and tell you what's installed on all the computers. I could tell you right now, that's not going to get everything. You got a lot of other applications. So then that's going to mean, all right, how do I build time, dedicate time to meeting with everyone in my company, or having a team meet with everyone in the company to kind of extract that information? Well, you're going to get some answers then, but have you created an environment where people feel okay to say, yeah, I kind of did. I did buy that software and I didn't ask anybody. I just put it right on the credit card and I kept it moving. So having some trust to where you're saying, hey, this isn't so I take away your software. This is so we understand what is going on here. Step one, just get an honest inventory. And if you can get that done in 90 days, kudos to you. If it takes you 180, that's okay. That's probably going to be relative kind of to the size of your company. Attempt to build some plan on what needs to happen before we buy anything new. And some people would jump to, hey, we got this inventory. Why don't we start categorizing things and seeing where we have overlap? Well, that takes time and energy. And what you don't want to do is add to that list before you actually get to that output, before starting to go back through that list and categorizing who's that subject matter expert, how long is the contract, how many licenses, what function is it. Before you do all that, high level, what does it look like if we bought another software tomorrow? What would be some questions we need to be asking? And really, what approvals might be needed? What problem are we trying to solve? Can we like spell that out? Then I would start looking at the inventory that you had before and categorizing things. And most people are going to start seeing some overlap in functions. You're going to start seeing some of the same softwares that got purchased by different people that if you would have had an enterprise account or something, you probably could have consolidated some and got some better pricing. Next thing I would say is remind yourself to not solve all this at once. Because at that point, you're going to have an urge to, all right, let's go, let's fix it all. We're going to cut off these 10 softwares. We're only going to use this one. And you're probably going to create more people buying stuff on their credit card. This is two separate issues, let's say. One is a technology problem of do we have the right tool? There's a separate problem of adoption, which is a little bit more complex and will take more time because we have change management and training and champions usually. And we got to think through what workflow exists within these tools. That starts getting a little bit more complex. And you actually want to work that into that plan of when you're saying what happens before we buy software. You want to be thinking about those things.
A lot of it seems internal in terms of messaging too, so that they know you're on their team and you're trying to put this template out there so that it is something that at the end of the day, people are frustrated and people are actually going to use the tools that you all decide upon. This is such a great discussion. We're already running out of time. We're here today with Lutalo Webb, who is VP of Data and Tech Strategy at Guarantee Electrical Company. And we've been talking about true tech integration. I think that that's a challenging position to fulfill, and you do so well. Do you have a support group of colleagues who do what you do?
Yeah, it's key to always kind of keep information flowing. That's the way we get better. And I would encourage whether you're going to a conference to meet people or, we got this thing called the internet that allows you to speak to people all over the world. So LinkedIn post, podcast, whatever it is to kind of to tap in and understand what's going on. Tech tool sprawl does not mean that you always have 100 apps. You could have 10 apps in your business and still have tool sprawl. I think sometimes people think, oh, I have to be this big company to focus in on this. And to be honest, I think sometimes it's more advantageous and more manageable to be a smaller business and getting ahead of this before you grow to mid-size and have some governance and some frameworks in mind.
Wise words. Lou, it's been a pleasure having you on Build America, and I hope that you'll come back and see us again soon. Thanks for learning us something today. And again, you're always welcome back on Build America. Appreciate you being with us.
No, thank you so much. Can't wait to be back.
Great.